Welcome to the Idle Talk podcast. My name's Peyton, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Jacob. This week, we are breaking down and talking about episodes 3 and 2 of Survivor 48, probably mostly episode 3, since that was a lot that went down, and I think we're both going to have very strong opinions. It goes without saying, spoiler warning for both of these episodes from Survivor 48. Let's get right into it. Jacob, I don't even really know where to start.
I feel like I want to start at the end, but I also feel like we shouldn't start at the end.
I'm afraid if we start at the end, that's all we will talk about.
We could probably talk about it for an hour.
I think that I think that needs to be its own podcast episode. We're going to touch on it here, but I think that we will need to have a deeper discussion about the mechanics of the game
and just the state of the game as a whole.
Yeah, and I think that that's really on everyone's mind, and we talk about it at least once a season, how the design of the game impacts the quality of Survivor. And it might make for good TV, but it doesn't really make for very compelling Survivor. And I think that there's no greater example than what we see at the very end of this episode, episode 3, where it's just a huge mess of a tribal that results in Justin going home, and he had no say in it, no pun intended, and it was just, honestly, it was kind of just disgusting to watch it go down. It was fun, don't get me wrong, the shot in the dark landing and leading up to that, Mary bluffing the idol to be able to get Say to split, and all of that, I think, is incredible. I don't fault Mary in the least.
Mm-mm.
This is 100% on Jeff.
Yes.
And I guess we're talking kind of vague because we're assuming people who are listening to this have seen the episode, but if for some reason you haven't, Jacob, can you try to, in the best way, explain very concisely what happened and how it resulted in Justin going home?
So we go into tribal, 4 people on the chopping block.
Yes.
Unbeknownst to Mary, Say, and Cedric, Justin does not have his vote. They go into tribal, they all vote. Mary plays her shot in the dark. Mary doesn't have a vote. So there are only 2 votes in the urn, Say's and Cedric's.
Mm-hmm.
Mary's shot in the dark lands, so she's safe. All the votes, Say and Cedric's vote, were for Mary. So all the votes were canceled out. So it's a revote. So they revote. Justin still doesn't have a vote. Say votes for Justin. Cedric votes for Say. So it's split, and we're tied. And then they have to revote. Traditionally, when there's a tie, you do a revote. And when you do a revote, the people who, the 2 options you can vote for, typically don't vote because they can only vote for each other. But Justin doesn't have a vote. So Say can still vote for Justin, and Cedric is the deciding vote. He can either vote for Say and gridlock it, or he can vote for Justin and end it.
Mm-hmm.
Cedric votes for Say again and deadlocks it. So now we're in deadlock. Traditionally in deadlock, the way it works is you basically debate between the people who still have a vote. They basically debate about who they want to send home between the 2 people who are on the chopping block of the tie. That's traditionally how it works.
Yeah, they're debating between the typically it's 2 people who are deadlocked together, which in this case it's Justin and Say.
Yes. So the issue is the only voting parties available is Cedric, because Mary doesn't have a vote anymore. So it is solely up to Cedric to decide who goes home between Justin and Say. And traditionally, if you can't come to a decision, you go to rocks. So if Cedric, for some reason, couldn't make up his mind, he would be the only one drawing rocks, so he would go home.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in this horrible situation solely, and we'll tie this back in later. We are in this horrible position solely because Justin's vote was taken away.
Yes.
And now we're in this horrible decision where Cedric has to make... we're at this horrible situation where Cedric has to make the decision to send home Say or Justin. And he is the only one who gets to choose.
Mm-hmm. And interestingly, he makes the decision to move forward with Say after voting against Say twice in one tribal council.
I think that was the dumbest decision he could have ever made. Because I
don't understand it.
There's no way.
Understand the move.
There's no way he doesn't think that Say is not going to hold a grudge. And down the line, Say isn't going to think, this man wrote my name down twice and was willing to send me home until I convinced him otherwise. I find it very hard to believe that Say will not betray Cedric when the time comes.
Yeah, I don't really understand Cedric's strategy there at the end with choosing Say over Justin. And I also don't understand Cedric's... I don't understand Cedric's utter confusion on the restart. Because in the original vote, there were only 2 votes, and they were both for Mary. And he knew one of them was his. And so I guess he had to have assumed that Say did not have her vote. I think that's the only thing I can assume. Based on his next vote in the vote restart, I'm guessing, unless he, even if he... Well, no, because the look on his face whenever he saw the votes flip out, like he was shocked. He seemed very confused as to what was going on. So I think he might have just assumed that Say found like a beware advantage, or he just is bad at counting. I don't know. But he seemed surprised on the vote restart that there were only 2 votes again, and that it was split between Say and Justin. And then I don't understand when he goes in there to vote, he has to know when you're going in for the revote that he's going in there and voting against Say. Justin does not have a vote because Justin's not voting himself. And so he is choosing to go to deadlock.
Yes.
And choosing to keep Justin. So he's made that decision. And then he changes his mind in deadlock. If he wanted to keep Say, you just vote out Justin.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can say, I was really confused on the revo. I thought that you had a beware advantage and or an idol or something. You could spin it some sort of a way. But now you've put yourself in this position where it's clear you wanted to go with Justin, and then you change your mind.
I agree. I think him switching last minute when he very obviously wanted to keep Justin instead of Say was a very bad decision. To be fair, Justin did not put up a fight.
I think he might have also just been done. It felt almost like at the very end just being quitting without quitting,
mm-hmm.
where he was just I don't even know if I want to be on this tribe for however many more days this thing goes on till the merge. This is a mess. And do I really want to play on a tribe with 3 people? It seemed like he was just resigned to bro, whatever you do, I don't really care. That's what to me it seemed like his attitude was. And so he didn't put up, he didn't fight to stay in the game, and Say did.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that regard, I don't fault Cedric for choosing the person who fought to stay in the game. I'm very surprised that Justin didn't do more, considering the fact that he was put in such a precarious situation at no fault of his own.
Yeah. And honestly, something that really pissed me off that Jeff said in the On Fire podcast yesterday was he said something along the lines of, like, Justin was never able to get his footing in the game.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I wonder why. It's almost like you didn't give him a chance.
Yeah, it's impossible to get your footing in a game when you're on the decimated tribe.
And when your vote gets taken away by pure chance.
Well, but I mean, even if the vote doesn't get taken away, I mean, it doesn't change the fact that up until this point, he's had no chance to get footing. And it's the same thing with any of these decimated tribes. Like, Sabaya never had chance to get footing in the game in 45. In 44, I don't even remember all the players on that tribe outside of the Tika 3. None of them had footing in the game because I cannot remember any of them.
Yeah.
Like, just straight up. I think that's as simple as that one is. And so, and then in 46, I mean, clearly none of the three that went out before, like the Yanu 3 who made it to the merge, got footing in the game. Like, Jess never had a shot. And it was just because, I mean, their tribe was decimated. And we've talked about this in detail before in past like podcasts and all the reasons why. And I think we'll probably talk about that more in another episode at some point. But it's really unfortunate the way that the game is currently designed is that, I mean, it's really hard to get footing in the game if you happen to be on the tribe that goes to tribal 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
And out of the recent seasons, since season 44, that's happened all but once. And it sucks.
Yeah.
I am glad, though, we're going to get a tribe swap next week.
Yeah.
I really hope that evens things out. Mm-hmm. And at least going into the merge, we have some different tribes going to tribal different weeks.
I think maybe what we should do from here is like take a step back and talk about how we got here.
Yeah, I think that's definitely, I mean, we have to. There's nowhere to go forward.
So honestly, I feel like we can just touch on what like the conclusion of episode 2 was, because I know we had both kind of talked about it was kind of just felt like a filler episode.
Yeah, and there's one thing I want to talk about with that episode specifically, but I want to bring it up when we get to part of this episode later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But we did have Kevin going home last episode. Did you have any parting thoughts on Kevin?
I think that, like, one thing that, especially now having watched episode 3 and looking back to 2, I mean, it's clear to me that they made the wrong decision, because I think they would have done better in the challenge if they had Kevin, but I don't know how much better they would have done because this was a blindfolded challenge. Maybe they would have been able to pull that rope faster. Who knows? He's probably a better communicator than Cedric. But I do think, though, it becomes really clear that somehow Cedric is like, he's the dismantler of the Vula tribe and no one realizes it. Cedric has cast a vote, and this is it at the end of episode 3. He's cast a vote for everyone in that tribe.
Every single person.
Every person in the tribe he cast a vote for. And he had a chance to cast a vote for himself and draw rock for himself. He literally, if he had not made a decision, he could have voted and set a record and been the first person to vote for everyone in the tribe. And so I mean, and technically he voted for everyone at this tribal council.
He did, yes. He voted for every single person available at this tribal council.
Like, I don't know if technically the
he didn't like write down
decision is a vote, but it's a decision.
I think on the Survivor Wiki,
it says Justin voted out.
Yeah, Justin is considered like voted out. He's not like dismissed, I guess would be the other word.
They're considered to be voted out of the tribe. Like, and Jeff will say whenever they arrive, like, Justin voted out at the last tribal council. Like, he'll still say voted. So I think it is still considered a vote. So, I mean, he cast a vote, I mean, at least one vote for every remaining person in the tribe, just in one tribal, and then also voted for the other players who left the game. So, I mean, he has dismantled this tribe, but he also is the reason that Kevin went home in just like blowing up Kevin's plan to go after Say and exposing that and getting and rallying Justin to make to not go that way. And he in aligning himself with Say, who I think is good TV and I think is an okay player. She's very chaotic, right? And I don't know the benefit for his game of being aligned with Say long term, because I think that she just brings like such a high threat level in terms of appearances to people, and she's a threat to him. Because like now that he's cast votes for her and kept her in, I mean I think she's just gonna go for blood. So Cedric, in my mind, we see it in episode 2 and it becomes really clear in episode 3. I think he's just kind of like dismantled this tribe and has somehow squeaked through it, being the only player on the tribe with no votes cast against him, which is somehow like the most impressive and baffling Survivor gameplay I've ever seen.
Yeah. It's crazy. So
I think that's one big takeaway I have from Kevin leaving. I wish that, like, even though I thought Kevin could have been the first boot, and I kind of thought he was going to leave earlier than a lot of people did, because for the reasons that he did
also
leave.
Sorry, this just popped in my head.
Go.
On the topic of you saying Cedric is kind of ruining everything on this tribe.
Yeah, the dismantler. Yeah.
He also was the one who told Say that she needed to play her idol, and she ended up not needing to.
Yes. Yeah. So in that regard, he's the reason that splitting the votes was even a consideration.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they would have split them because I don't think they were concerned about the shot in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
If she hits the shot in the dark, whatever, you know,
revote.
and she does, right? Which is great. We'll probably talk about that more later, but crazy. And so I think that like they were just more concerned about her having the idol. And so if Say has it, none of that's a concern.
Mm-hmm.
There's no concern. It doesn't ultimately affect the outcome at the end, but it eliminates a lot of the scramble in the episode, and it probably provides some like uniformity and cohesion among them. I think there's a chance Mary maybe doesn't even play her shot in the dark. She probably still does, but there could even be a chance that like other moves are made because there's not this whole running and chasing, and you know, a lot of things are different in that scenario. So, and maybe Justin and Cedric try to make a move and go after Say. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But because she has an idol and you want to get that thing out. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that he was like, you need to play it, and she ended up not needing to play it, definitely impacted things this episode for sure. I agree. Even though technically she played it for her grandma, not herself.
Yeah.
So
all votes cast for Say's grandma will not count.
Will not count. What I was going to say is like, even though I thought Kevin was going to leave early, I'm kind of bummed that he did, because I was looking forward to seeing what he could do if
on
he
a
made
proper
it,
tribe.
Yeah, if he made it post-merge. And that's the same thought that I had about Stephanie, is that like she was pretty well screwed like in this game. And I think that this might be the first time I felt ever like the first 3 boots in a Survivor season were all wrongfully booted in some way. Like undeserving of leaving the game. I have felt before that an early boot was undeserving. I don't think I've ever thought straight up the first 3 boots did not deserve to leave. for some reason. Like, I think that Kevin and Stephanie didn't deserve to go because of like tribe dynamics that were out of their control. And it was unfortunate circumstances that they were dealt. And so it sucks that they had it, like, it just happened that way. And then Justin, I just think didn't deserve to go because of the journey. Like, I just think the journey was dumb. Do you have any thoughts regarding last week's episode?
Not particularly, other than the fact that I agree in Kevin just doesn't, I don't know. Like, I feel like certain players, they just give off early boot vibes, like in the sense that them getting booted early just makes sense. Kevin and Stephanie do not fit early boot vibes. So I'm really bummed to see them go, because especially I feel like they could have been really good personalities for the rest of the season. So definitely bummed. But where I would like to start talking about this episode, backpedaling from Tribal, I'd love to talk about Eva's misplay this episode, because I think personally she had a blunder this episode.
Are you referring to the bracelet?
No, I'm not referring to the bracelet.
Then her conversation with Star?
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So Ava she's like, I need to figure out if I can trust Star or not. And so she's like, I can't tell when Star's lying to me, but I know through my sources that Star found an advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So let me go ask Star directly if she found something. And I understand where Eva is coming from, but I think it's a really bad move. Not like, I don't think necessarily asking her it was the bad move. The bad move was the follow-up.
Yeah.
But
I think her way of like trying to suss out if she's lying to her, I think was smart, given the fact that she has a hard time reading people.
Yeah.
I think that was probably the smartest way she could have done it herself.
But I think
it was definitely the follow-up convo.
But what I think what I was mainly confused about is why Eva would be surprised that Star wouldn't tell her whenever they've done like no strategic talk up to this point. They have not built a relationship whatsoever. So why would Star be forthcoming about that information to Eva?
Yeah, I mean, I think Eva's thought was maybe just like
Star doesn't have any relationships.
Well, Star told everyone and didn't really have a relationship with anyone else and was willing to spill to everyone else on the tribe. And so if she kind of tried to talk strategy and kind of tried to like build a relationship, that maybe like she'd be like, well, everyone else knows, like it doesn't really impact anything. Because Star, I don't think Star, if Star thinks that it's a secret from Eva, I think Star is kind of dumb. Mm-hmm. Because if all 5 people, or if all 4 other people on the tribe know, all 5 people on the tribe know.
Yeah.
There's no way that it doesn't get back to the other person. It'd be the same if Star's on the outside. I still think if one of the other people found it, I think it would get back to Star.
Mm-hmm.
If everyone else knows. The only way it really stays under wraps if like 1 or 2 people know. That's the only way it stays under wraps. And even then, it usually comes out in a tribe of 6.
Mm-hmm. But I think her blunder came when she threw out Thomas and Bianca's name, because I feel like that was kind of unnecessary and giving Star ammunition that she did not need to give her.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to get your thoughts, because I know Eva's your girl this season.
I think that it was, I see where she was coming from in that approach. I just think it was a misread, because I think Eva, in Eva's head, and where I think I see her thought process here is that she sees herself and Star as the 2 like physically focused and like challenge oriented women on the tribe, right? That's something that she has in common with Star. And that's probably one of the only things that she feels like she has in common with Star, because like she said, they haven't connected. And so she wants to go and connect over the fact that, hey, we have a very strong challenge tribe. The 2 of us were strong in challenges. And so what's a way to, foster that connection? I think would be to single out the non-challenge people, I guess, to say like, hey, we don't need both of them. They don't contribute in the same way we do. I think I see where she's coming from. I think it's a misread because clearly Star felt like she was aligned, feels like she's aligned with Bianca and Thomas. And I guess even though like Thomas wanted to get rid of Star's clue, and I think they're not actually aligned with Star. I think they're just using her because they feel, I think everyone on this tribe just feels like they want to be aligned with Star because they can use her.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I think Star probably benefits from the tribe swap a lot because she'll be able to actually potentially forge her own game and get a restart on these alliances. But I think, yeah, it was definitely a misstep on Eva's part. And this whole episode really, like, it became apparent that people are seeing Eva and Joe as threats.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they just wanted us to make note and see that they're not insulated and totally safe. It's going to be very interesting to see if they end up on the same tribe when they swap.
Yeah, I think Eva could struggle if she is not on the same tribe as Joe.
I think she could. I think, however, she's okay if she gets on the same tribe as Mitch or Charity. I think either of those two, because of the way we've seen their bond form and their relationship, it's not the same as her and Joe, but they seem like they're the two that I was kind of thinking like I could totally see them aligning with Joe and Eva post-merge.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there are people she could connect with on another tribe, but it's going to be a reset. And one thing I am a little worried about is she said she struggles with change. It's tough. And if there's a big change at the drop of a dime and she loses her number one ally in Joe, how is that going to impact the rest of her game?
I don't know if you noticed, but in the preview promo of next episode, they showed Eva like messing with her hands, like she was saying, like when she gets stressed out that she like messes with her hands. They showed her doing that. So I think it definitely, I don't know how it's going to shake down in terms of like how she's going to take it, but it's clear that they're foreshadowing it having some impact.
Luckily, she's guaranteed to have a loggy on her tribe. But just mathematically,
mm-hmm.
she will have at least one loggy on her tribe, right? Because there's
6 of them, and each tribe has 5. Well,
yeah,
it's
right.
No, it's not guaranteed.
Tribe, no,
it's not guaranteed.
There's 3, 6 and 6, 5, 5.
It's
okay.
not guaranteed.
I
it's
guess
highly unlikely, but it's not guaranteed.
Yes, it's not guaranteed, but it is statistically improbable that she would end up on a tribe without
at
a
least
loggy.
one.
She should end up on a tribe with another loggy, and it's likely that she ends up on a tribe with a loggy or Mitch or Charity. Like that opens the pool even more. Like I think that she has options, but she's definitely at risk. I do think, though, her and Joe being separated for a time and then coming back into the merge together could, if they both stay safe and come back into the merge, could be the best thing for their game to cool off the
heat on them
that Shaheen and Thomas are sensing and feeling, and then come back later and be a strong duo.
Mm-hmm.
So
I do want to say Thomas is like the perfect amount of like villainy for me on Survivor. Like I've find him like more and more compelling each episode.
He's a very interesting player right now. When we get later and we start talking about winners and play and like players' edits and confessionals, like whenever we start getting into some of the nitty gritty data stuff,
mm-hmm.
Thomas has been the most consistent of everyone in terms of confessionals. He is averaging the exact, like it's been 4-5-5. He is even across the board, just having a very consistent presence on the show, and is getting a lot more time than I thought he would, and has been getting a lot of time even when Loggy hasn't been getting a lot of time. So Thomas is definitely someone that, like, I wasn't that high on pre-merge, but I'm starting to be intrigued by. I still don't get winner, but I think that he's a very interesting, kind of the way you said villain. I think he's an interesting, like, wrench.
Yeah.
He
doesn't feel like
post-merge.
I don't feel like a villain is the best word. He just feels like an antagonist.
Yes.
I feel like it's the best word.
He definitely feels like what Camilla kind of wants to be, like causing some chaos. He feels like that's kind of his vibe, and just embracing that, because Thomas doesn't really need the money. Thomas is out here for fun.
He's a music executive for Sony.
So Thomas is out here for shits and giggles, right? It's like Mike White, out there for fun, to have a good time. It's the dream, right? And so he's just out here to have a blast. Mm-hmm. And so I think that he's just going to play all out and go kind of crazy. Like, he's not playing it super safe and close to the chest because it's like, oh man, I really need this money for my family. Like, some people tend to be a little bit more scared and reserved. Like, he's kind of playing it. Like Jeff says, like, go out there and play like it's your second time. He's kind of doing that because it's like he doesn't need to win. Mm-hmm. So he's just going out there and having fun, which is very interesting because not a lot of players go out there with that freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would love to talk about some of the dynamics that were happening on the Siva tribe. I don't know about you, but whenever the stuff was going down between David and Kyle, that was really hard to watch because, like, Kyle was, like, trying to match what he thought David's energy was, and David was
it
like,
was not the energy. Yeah.
No, and it was not the energy that David had, and it was so awkward.
That was such a weird sequence for me. It was a lot of time to give to David. Like, this is one of those things where I'm sure someone does confessional time tracking. I just have, like, confessional counts. But I would want to see, like, if someone's done, like, up-to-date confessional time tracking. Like, I'd want to know, even though, like David had 4 confessionals this episode, how long were they? Because it felt like he had a lot of time during that sequence. And it felt like really out of place. And their whole exchange felt kind of weird and was just like, energy was awkward. I am perplexed by the decision to include all of that here. And so
they really wanted us to know that his girlfriend's going to break up with him if he doesn't win.
Yeah, their exchange. I did find it quite funny, though, when David's like, yeah, I live in a trailer in front of my dad's house. And he was like, that's sick, dude.
That's awesome. He was like, no, it's not.
No, it's not. Why would you think that's cool? Why would you think that's cool at all, bro? It freaking sucks. It sucks so bad. Chicks don't want to come back to my trailer, bro. And I'm just like, okay, man. Hey, chill. Like, you don't got to be like, it was just very weird. Yeah, I don't really understand the inclusion of that. I think they were just trying to get us more time with these players. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to read into that and what that means for either of them and how long they're going to be on the show. Maybe David's, boot time is here soon, so they wanted to give us a little bit more info on him. Or maybe he makes a deep run, and so we're starting to get a ramp up on learning about him. We've already seen his 4 nipples, and now we get this. Is he getting the Sam treatment, where we're starting to learn about his fruits and vegetables? I don't know.
Yeah. He is getting a lot of screen time though. So I thought I thought there was no shot he didn't make the merge just because muscular guys tend to make the merge, but
Yeah.
I don't know how far he will make it post merge.
I mean, he feels like he's going to be target number 1 unless he's in a strong 4, which it seems like he's in a semi-strong 4.
He's in an interesting 4, that's for sure.
It is a 4, I think is the way to say it.
Yeah, it's one of the 4s of all time.
It's one of the 4s of this tribe because there are 2 4s in this tribe.
Who's the other 4?
So there's the Siva 4, which is David, Chrissy, Camilla, and Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the Mitch and Charity 4, which is Mitch, Charity, Kyle, and David.
I didn't know that they had made a 4. When did they make a 4?
This episode. So Mitch went out on the boat with Kyle.
Oh,
said,
yeah,
hey,
yeah.
I have Charity. If you and David come with us post-merge, all 4 of us will be viewed as threats.
Yeah.
Trying to do a
big
challenge threat alliance.
Yeah.
Because Mitch thinks that like he's going to be a challenge threat because of like endurance. Charity is obviously going to be one of the top sort of like of the female challenge threats alongside like Eva. And probably, I mean, I think Star will probably be pretty competitive in that regard too. And then, I mean, obviously David just is David. So that's the other kind of 4. And so that was where Kyle was saying that like him and David are in a middle position where they can choose which 4 they want to go with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, what is the next topic you would like to hit on? Should we go to the immunity challenge?
I think we should talk a little bit about the immunity challenge. I don't know how much there is to talk about there. But
other than the fact that it just felt really weird that
I think that's the main thing to talk about.
Yeah. It was really weird that we had this blindfold race challenge where it was one caller and then 2 people tied together and then 1 person alone. It felt painfully obvious that production had meant to have this challenge when all of the tribes had 5 people, or at least 5 people.
I don't think they were planning on doing this after a tribe lost 3 in a row. I think they were banking on at least 2 tribes going to tribal council.
Mm-hmm.
And if that were the case, then they could have had 2 pairs on each tribe go out and a caller, and then 1 person sits out on a tribe.
Yeah, because it felt very, very weird that it was like 2 pairs and then 1 person just by themselves. Felt very random. But the thing that I thought was hilarious was Cedric giving directions to Say and Justin, and Cedric being like on your left, and then she would turn right, and Justin would be like, and he would be like, no, you're left, or he would be like 9 o'clock, and he's like 9 o'clock, and Say would like turn, and he'll be like 9 o'clock is this way, and I'm like, how do you not know directions?
Yeah, he tried giving directions about every way he could, and none of it was very helpful for her. So I don't know what else he could have done. I feel like you got to divide, like before you go out there, you got to explain the system maybe. I don't know. Or I guess what they could have done is put Justin in front. But yeah, it was pretty funny, and just they were in a rough spot from the get-go. Very impressive though. Joe just absolutely challenge beasting the course on his own.
He just found it.
just remembered where the thing was and just basically like booked it and got to the very first task on his own.
Mm-hmm.
No caller needed.
Now that you just said that, they should hide the challenge.
So, I mean, Jeff talks about that in On Fire. He talked about that in On Fire this week. So I don't know how closely you were paying attention.
I mean, I was working while I was doing it, so I was like half listening.
So, I mean, he talked about that, how they used to do that, and then they've, over the years, tried to figure out, like, okay, how much do we show? Because normally they do a walkthrough of the challenges, right? Where they can walk through the challenge and understand where everything is and how it works before they do it. so that, they don't have like questions and it's done safely and all that sort of stuff. And so with this one, they used to just go into it blind, and they were trying to kind of balance, the going into it blind with like people getting hurt and all this sort of stuff. And then he said, like, ultimately they found that if they know what the course is and what the challenge is that it doesn't really give people an advantage, that like historically, like it's not provided a huge advantage for anyone, because the blindfolds that they make are very, very good, and they are still dependent on the caller to navigate, and they design the obstacles in a way that they still have to get around them. So they used to prevent them from seeing it, but now they still have an understanding where it is. And it just seems like Joe is like the first person that we've seen actually really take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's the first one to have the opportunity to do that, because he's running out there on his own. Typically, you have someone strapped to you, and they would
slow you down
or change your direction, right? If they've got some drag, maybe you're going to get pulled a different direction, So the fact that he was able to just run it, I think that made it where this is a unique circumstance.
Yeah. Well, we have the immunity challenge.
Journey. The journey is where we got to go.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I want to talk about last episode 2 a little bit, because I think last episode we have an example of how to do a journey the right way. If you're going to do a journey, last episode was a perfect example of the way to do a journey. And then this episode,
the worst
possible way to do a journey. The worst. So to compare and contrast the two.
Almost the best way, because they still didn't have an option of whether they wanted to play or not. The best way.
No, it is the best way, because they had the option of whether they wanted to play or not before they got on the boat.
Oh, yeah.
They chose at the tribe level if they wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was, I think, the best implementation of a journey we've ever had, immediately followed up by the worst implementation of a journey we've probably ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And so to compare and contrast them, I think we can like look at a couple like elements, and if there's anything we want to talk about them, we can before we like keep moving through this. But I think the key, like one of the key things, is having a choice in whether you go on the journey or not, / whether you participate in the task or not. And so I think you need one or the other, or both. Really, it's probably just one or the other. You either choose if you're going to go on the journey, or you choose, if you don't get to choose that you go on the journey, when you get there, you choose if you're going to participate.
Mm-hmm.
Last week's, they chose beforehand if they were going to go. And that was where they were deciding to risk reward their vote. They already knew that before they were going, because that's what journeys are. This week, they did not have a choice in whether they went unless they were the winning tribe. So we're going to exclude that. We're going to really just think about the two people that did not have a choice. And when they got there, they had no choice in whether they played the game or not. The way you immediately fix this entire journey, the way you fix the whole thing in this stupid game of chance, is they have a choice whether they want to play or not.
Mm-hmm.
The journey is immediately fixed. The fact that they had no choice of whether or not they played this game makes it the dumbest journey ever.
Yes.
If they decided to play or decided to leave, it works, and I don't have any problems with it. I mean, I think it's stupid still, compared to the fact that like last time it was a puzzle and this time it's a game of chance, and it's like, well, that's stupid, whatever. At least they get to choose whether they want to do it, and it's a 50-50 shot, risk your vote, keep your vote.
Mm-hmm.
At least it's in their hands. The only person whose hand it was technically in was Bianca. And even then, she didn't really know what she was risking. For all she knew, she was going out there to do a puzzle. That's what she thought she was going out there to do. That's what they all thought they were going to do. So that's my biggest, my biggest qualm with this whole thing, is the the lack of choice in this more than the fact that it's just straight up chance.
Yeah, I completely agree. The biggest gripe is definitely the lack of choice, and then secondarily is the fact that if they didn't have a choice, it was a complete game of chance and wasn't even a game of skill. So it was just a lose-lose situation. Like when I was watching it, I was like, this literally feels like what, like if Jeff was to be like, and you can play Survivor at home too, like that's what it felt like I would be doing, rolling dice. I was like, have we lost the plot? Have we gotten this uncreative? And it truly baffles me. And I also like texted you the challenge. Like, I don't know how Jeff can just stand there after Vula loses again. I don't know how he stands there and thinks that this is working. I really don't get it. I don't understand how he just stands there and thinks that this is good Survivor. Maybe that's where my argument is like, and not even argument. It's my thought process on this is, I don't even know if Jeff is sitting there thinking this is good Survivor. I think he thinks that it's good TV. And I think probably to Jeff that's one and the same, and it's not. But I think to Jeff, good TV and good Survivor are the same thing because he's the showrunner and executive producer and all that stuff. But just because it's entertaining to watch doesn't make it good Survivor. Yeah. I feel like at one point they were separate to him, but I feel like they're one and the same now. I feel like at one point he really did try and make the best game possible for the players, but now it really feels like it's just like a lot of these things are to create shock values and to create artificial tension and artificial chaos that creates good television. Because for the average viewer, this is probably an amazing episode. For the casual person, they probably loved it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if you separate, like if I separate my brain and I think about it with just the primitive part of my brain, it's fun TV. It's exciting. But the second I bring in the logic part of my brain, it's freaking stupid. Because it doesn't matter how exciting it is. The mechanics of it are frustrating and annoying. And it's hard to get over that when it's a game that has so much history to it. And we have seen how great Survivor can be. And we've seen how great it can be in the new era at times too. It's not even like this is just like talking crap about the new era. Like there's been plenty of the new era that we've really loved. There's been plenty last season. There's been stuff this season. Like last episode, I thought it wasn't like an amazing episode, but the journey, last episode's journey, amazing. We were talking about it last week, just the two of us, and I gave Jeff a lot of props for the way that they did that. And we were giving them a lot of props the first week for the way that they did that initial sort of Sweat v Savvy thing. That not really the Sweat v Savvy of old, but their new take on it. And how it felt like, okay, they're evolving. This is really great stuff. And then they come and do this. And it's just, it really brings us back to that level.
It feels like a total regression of the positive progress they've made on controversial new era mechanics.
Yeah. And it just shows that like, even though there's like a lot of progress being made, it's still the same thing. And I think we just have to like enjoy the good stuff when we get it and know that this annoying junk's going to keep happening. And I just don't know if I mean, this is just the way Survivor is. And I guess like sitting here and complaining about it's never going to do anything. Yeah. There's no real thing we can do about it. It's just, unfortunately, this is the way Survivor is now. Luckily, though, there are all of these other positive things that are happening around it. And like, if we get to the end of the season and this is the only real boof by production, I'll be content. Like I won't look back on this season and be too like I don't think that
That's
this
not
will
going
be
to taint
the,
your
the
view
big
of the
thing.
season.
Yeah, like, but if there are more big things, you know, if there's like multiple times where they do this sort of thing in the season, that really it takes away from the awesome stuff that we had in the first couple episodes and maybe some other awesome things that happen later. So it's just, I'm going to be really interested. This is only episode 3. Interested to see how the rest of the season goes and if this has any sort of bearing on the way they're thinking about the game over the course of the rest of the season or not.
I agree. I mean, I think fundamentally, I don't know where production's head was at, knowing that there was a 50% chance that the Vula tribe was going to be going into a tribal with 3 votes.
50-50 chance they were going in with, at least 3. And then knowing Shot in the Dark is on the table and any of them can give up their vote. Multiple of them could have. Like, what do you do in that scenario where someone else does?
Something I was not aware of until I listened to On Fire, they don't replace the scrolls in the Shot in the Dark.
Yeah, we talked about this before, and you told me that they replaced it. Like, you thought they replaced it, and I was pretty sure it was just 6, which is because that's the number of players, and it was just like there's a scroll for everyone sort of thing. But
they do replace them every tribal.
Yes.
It's just at that tribal there's always 6.
There's 6 in there. 1 says safe, the rest say not safe. And when you go back there, everyone's picking from the same bag. And so it's like, it's sort of the Schrodinger's cat thing where it's like, because you don't know what someone else draws, everyone has the same odds technically.
Also, like, what happens if no one votes?
I don't know.
Because that's a possibility.
If everyone played their Shot in the Dark.
I'm assuming that the person who was safe would be safe, and then the not safe people would get to vote, maybe? I don't know how it would work.
Maybe it just goes to previous tribal council votes.
I don't know. I just think that's why the Shot in the Dark just opens so many cans of worms that, like,
I don't know if they're prepared to answer.
Yeah.
I do. One thing
because, like, what would be crazy is, like, say you're on the 6, like a tribe of 6, and you're like, let's all just play our Shots in the Dark.
Just see what happens.
Yeah.
But then one person doesn't. The thing is you can't trust anyone does that.
I know. I'm just saying.
I know. Like that'd be fun in theory, but no shot. All 6 people do it.
Know.
One person's going to do it. Decide who goes home. Everybody's afraid one person's going to do it, so multiple people do it.
Yeah.
But if everyone did, I think they would probably just let the one person who's safe. Maybe they get their vote back and they make the decision. Because, all right, you won the 1 in 6. Everyone else risked it. You're the winner. You get to go cast a vote now. That's maybe the only way I can think that they do it.
Yeah.
What I do want to, like, I would love for someone, because I know technically if no one opens the scroll, the math is that everyone drawing, it's like a 1 in 6 chance. But if you knew the person in front of you going was drawing a scroll, technically, like, are your odds better if you go draw a scroll after them?
I feel like that is
like I would
true.
assume like sure, you're taking a chance that, like, there's a 1 in 6 chance that your odds are 0, but there's also a 1 in 6 chance, or
I don't know what those
5 in 6, or is there but there's a 5 in 6 chance that your odds are 1 in 5, right? Is that the math?
I never took statistics. I couldn't tell you.
I don't know if that's the right math, but I think there's a 1 in 6 chance that your odds are 0 out of 5, but there's a 5 in 6 chance that your odds are 1 in 5.
Maybe.
I think that's how that works.
I don't know.
And so if that's the case, I'll take those odds. Because that means you got better odds, which means you always want to go after someone that you know.
Oh yeah, I mean, if I knew someone was playing the shot in the dark and I was going to play it too, I would definitely want to go second.
Yes, because it technically increases your odds.
Yes, because there's a 1 in 6, there's a 5 in 6 chance that I will now have a 1 in 5 chance.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah, it's such a stupid mechanic, and what the funniest thing too is Mary agrees with us.
Mm-hmm.
She agrees that it's whack.
The Survivor gods, they're funny. They like to have their laughs.
And she was safe. The second player to be safe, and it impacts sending someone home.
I was about to say, I think,
or to invalidate votes, not send someone home, but to invalidate votes.
Because it has hit on someone, but it didn't matter.
Yeah, I don't know who it was, but I know that I think it's hit 3 times. It hit Caleb, it's hit Mary, and I think it hit one other time, but I don't know where it was, but it didn't matter. Because the votes were not on them. It's got to be an early season, I feel like. It's got to be 41, 42, 43 is my thinking.
Jamie played it.
Oh, in 45?
And 44.
Or 44, yes.
Jamie played it and got safe, but she didn't have any votes cast against her.
I do remember that, yes.
Let's see. It has been played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 times, and has hit 3. That's pretty close to odds.
I mean,
that's 1 in 5.
It was at odds before, right? 2 of 14. Like it was,
yeah.
Like it was pretty much at odds before. I mean, it was due essentially because it was just under odds before, and now it's above. So it's like now it is not in your favor to draw that sucker because it's like odds are it's not going to hit for a little while. That's not how statistics work, but now we regress back to the mean, technically.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, that was really cool. I think Mary had a great episode. I think I really like Mary's growing on me a lot. Big winner of this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's going to be a big winner of this tribe split as long as she's not on the same tribe as Say.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's going to do very well.
She is hilarious.
She's great.
I love her. She has shot up my list of my favorite personalities this season.
Oh yeah, she's doing very, very well.
As we're starting to get close to wrapping up, I do want to talk about her what she did on her tribe after the immunity challenge.
Mm-hmm.
How she was basically like, I'm not gonna panic. I'm committing to the bit of acting super cool, and it worked so well. It got Say so paranoid, and it was legit so funny. And her running around the jungle and just running away from Say the entire time. Their dynamic is one of the most fun to watch that I've seen in a while. In terms of butting heads duo.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw Jeff in an interview teased this season that there was
there's 2 players who they can't help but gravitate towards each other, but in a bad way.
Well,
or not a bad way.
Well, he said something that he this season it was something about this season has one of his favorite post merge friends to enemy or enemies to allies or something like that. So people are speculating the obvious thing is that would be Mary and Say if they both make it to merge, which would make sense post swap that they have some time apart and then they come back together. Cedric's probably eliminated by then, so they're the only 2 of the original Vula, and it's all right, hey, we're gonna work together, something like that. The other one that everybody's is it could be maybe it's Eva and Star. I think that one's a lot less likely, but it is. I think that could be a very interesting arc for the two of them. And if that's the case, then man, Mary starts to really make her way up the winner rankings, because that, in terms of the edit and the narrative, like, it starts to feel really good. I don't know if like that's too picture perfect for her to like actually win, but that feels like really nice from a cohesive storytelling perspective. So yeah, I really like Mary. I think that she was really great in this episode. And I think that, kind of thinking about, I guess, talking about Mary, I think now is probably a good time to, like, I guess, talk about like maybe look at like risers and fallers for our, like, if we were to maybe, we're not going to make official like power rankings at this point, right? There's too many people. But if we were to think, okay, who's rising and who's like trending up, who's trending down, thinking towards, now that we're about to have a mix up, moving towards the merge, where's your head at on people? Obviously, we think Mary's rising. I think that's an easy one. Who else is rising in your mind? And we'll talk about falling in a minute.
Yeah, I was gonna say Mary is rising. Honestly, Star's kind of rising. Not gonna lie, Star's rising.
I think Star started rising last week.
So I think Star's rising.
Star did only have one confessional this episode, and it was the one about Eva. But I think she had a good episode last week. So, like, I think Star is compelling to make the merge.
Yeah. So Star is rising for me. Who else do we got? I think Cedric has fallen for me a lot. David, I think, has risen a lot for me. Camilla has risen a lot for me too. So I'd say those.
Camilla had another good episode. This episode, a lot like the premiere. She had a down episode in episode 2, but this was another big one for her.
So I feel like those are probably my, like, people that I have had an increased positive opinion of since the beginning.
Yeah, I think one of my biggest risers is probably Thomas.
Yeah, and Thomas,
would be one that I'd think about, because he's been very consistent and was someone that I wasn't very high on pre-merge. I think from an episode to episode perspective, Bianca is the biggest riser from 2 to 3, or just straight up from the first 2 episodes to 3. She had no screen time in the first 2, and she got a lot more screen time in this one. So just naturally, she was a bigger, like a riser in that regard, but I don't think that she's rising in terms of her prospects to win. But she got 7 confessionals. She quadrupled her confessional count in one episode. So good on her. But still wasn't great that her first 2 episodes were 1 confessional each.
Yeah, duds.
I think Chrissy has big fallen off. She got the first 0 bomb of the season.
And the previous 2 were 1 each.
It was 1 and then 2 last episode.
It was 1 and 2.
Yeah, but not good. Chrissy's just not getting a good edit. And I don't... It could be a thing where it's like, this is a Genevieve. It's hard because, like, Genevieve had a very similar edit at the beginning. But also, Genevieve was with Rome, who was stealing a lot of her edit. And so I guess technically, like, she's on a tribe with Kyle, who has had a lot of confessionals, and Camilla, who's had a lot of confessionals, and David, who's had a lot of confessionals. So there are confessionals going elsewhere on Siva. And so maybe those players are going to run their course. Like, I could see David leaving and Kyle leaving before Chrissy, potentially, and then she'll get to play the game and we'll see more of her, maybe. But the fact that we've seen so little of her, I think she has... the fact that she has 0 confessionals this episode, already no shot at winning. But the lack of visibility overall, I think she's got no shot. I think, like, Kyle has clearly, like, regressed back towards the mean from his very strong first episode. And Say is trending back, but it's hard to do that when you started with 21 confessionals.
I just that's still insane. That's still so wild.
So it's like it's hard for me to evaluate like them rising and falling. I think Shaheen's kind of falling off a little bit. But it's also
he only had one, right?
Yeah, he only had one, but also like so did Joe. And it's the sort of thing where it's like just not even looking at like their raw numbers. They're just a tribe of like the narrative this episode was Bianca, Thomas, Eva. That was where the attention was whenever we were focused on them. So I don't think it's a huge deal to catch a 1. I'm not that worried. Eva's staying pretty steady. I'm not going to consider her a riser or a faller. I think she's probably about the same. But I think like Mary, biggest riser of everyone. Thomas, I'm liking more. Star, I don't think she's a true riser in terms of like being a contender, but I think that she's becoming a lot more compelling and interesting. And then I do think Charity, we're getting more of her and Mitch. I don't think they're in contender territory, but I like that we're starting to get more of them. The last thing I want to bring up while we're talking about like confessionals and stats is kind of bring a little bit of historical data into this before we like wrap up here in our last couple minutes. I decided to look at other New Era seasons through the first 3 episodes because now we have a little bit of data. If you average total confessional count numbers across all winners of the New Era, you get an average of 3.9 confessionals over the first 3 episodes. If you do that without Erica's numbers in it, because she only had 2 in the first 3 episodes, so she skews it down a lot, that goes up to 4.4. So we're in somewhere between that 4 to 4.4 range. Kinsey definitely skews the data up a lot. She had a lot of confessionals early on because Yanu was losing a lot. But so that's where I don't feel terrible about having the data with Erica in there. I think if we're around 4, I think that's probably okay. If we're just trying to look at what makes sense. And so if we're looking at, okay, 4 is our benchmark, the people still that are around that and in play, Camilla at 4, dead even. Eva, 3.67, so a little bit below. Mary's at 5. Thomas, 4.67, so a little bit above for both of them. David's also at 5. Kyle's at 5, but he's skewed heavy by his first episode, but he's kind of regressing back down to that. Those are kind of the people that are hovering around that mark. Everyone else is either sub, like down at 3 or lower, or well above that mark. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on those being the specific players there, if there's anyone that you're surprised is listed there or isn't there, but that's just some random numbers that I'm bringing in there.
Survivor analytics.
And as we start to get more episodes, this is just something I'm looking at as we're moving through the season to see if this is relevant.
Yeah, if it tracks.
Because I don't know if it is or not, but I think it's an interesting thing to track episode by episode and kind of tallying them as we move along.
Yeah.
Because I think that it could be indicative of something. It also might not be at all.
Yeah. It's different every season. The winner edit is different every season, but there are trends. And it's definitely cool to see the data out like that. So I'm interested to see how it shakes out in the future as well. But we have a tribe swap to look forward to next week, so I am already ready for next week's episode.
Yep.
And to see how that shakes down.
We already know 2 tribes that players are moving to. We know Say is going to Siva, and we know Shaheen's going to Vula. Those are the 2 that we know already.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see who else is moving around.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot to look forward to, and I'm excited. But with that, we will wrap up our recap of episodes 2 and 3 of Survivor 48. If you enjoyed, we would really appreciate a rating and a review wherever you're listening to this podcast, as it helps us grow. Follow us wherever you're listening so you can stay up to date whenever we post new content, and follow us on social media at I Don't Talk Podcast, and we will catch y'all in the next one.